In July 1960, two Mormon missionaries knocked on our door. My mother answered it and said, "Come in, I've been waiting for you." In reality, she was waiting for some young men she'd been praying for to come from the Church of England, but when it turned out to be Mormons, they apparently were just as good. And 10 days later, we were baptized. I had never considered God before and was lured into Mormonism, if you will, through charismatic missionaries who taught a gospel that was fascinating. A young man my age who had seen God and Jesus and translated a book, and I went to school and told all my friends, and some of them actually joined the church. And for me, after that, it was a mission, a marriage, kids and callings for the next 43 years. My atheistic tendencies tended to haunt me, and eventually, shortly after my wife died, sitting in church alone was very difficult. Not that her death would affect my belief pattern in any way, but simply being alone with my thoughts that I wasn't sure I could cling to the idea of a God at all was devastating for me. However, after a full year of trying to make things be true in my head, I just succumbed and reading from the Book of Mormon one morning as usual, and my world just caved in on me, and I just broke down and cried. And I knew for me, and for me alone, with due respect to what anybody else believes, I found that for me personally, I could not believe in God. Ergo, the church could not be true. And I had to face and deal with that trauma, because if there wasn't a God, then the church couldn't be true. I had no idea why, but Joseph Smith must have been a good, albeit deluded man. But if I could not hold to a belief in God, out of integrity alone, I had to resign from the church. 3 years later, I accidentally discovered that Joseph Smith married several women who already had husbands. And I discovered that this was called polyandry, a word I'd never heard before. But I was still conditioned to not go outside the church for information unless, because it could be tainted. So I wrote to Apostle Jeff Holland, who I'd known for many decades, and said, look, although I've left the church, I've come across this material and I just simply don't understand it, and I wondered if you'd be kind enough to explain it to me. He wrote back and said that he had a mutual friend of ours, that was Elder Kenneth Johnson in the First Quorum of 70, telephoned me to discuss the situation. He duly called, and I asked what the church's position was regarding polyandry. He confirmed that it was absolutely contrary to doctrine, and yet I had conclusive proof that Joseph Smith, Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball all participated in polyandrous relationships, children and all with some women. He didn't know that it had been confirmed. He said that those who participated would have to account for it, and I pointed out that in such case, Joseph Smith, Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, theocratically in Mormonism, all forfeit their eternal salvation. The response I got from a general authority was that it didn't matter. I don't know what didn't matter, but that was his response, that Joseph Smith still saw God and Jesus Christ, and the Book of Mormon was still true. And I'm afraid that I couldn't cope with that. It meant for me that the Mormon church most certainly could not be true, and that Joseph Smith simply made things up as a complete hoax. My name is Jim Whitefield. I am an ex-Mormon.